Hello, hola, and welcome to the Audacity of Joy podcast, where we answer the central question: what role does joy have in our work to promote justice, transformation, and healing? I'm your host, Jennice Chewlin, public health champion, entrepreneurial activist, affectionately named La Reina of Joy, and CEO of the workplace wellbeing consultancy, Chewlin Group. In this podcast, you'll hear from changemakers, creatives, and leaders who are using joy as a strategy for change, celebration, and challenge. Each episode offers real talk about burnout, recovery, and the courage to choose joy in spaces that often forget it. Listen to spark curiosity, reflection, and action. This isn't about ignoring struggle. It's about daring to imagine differently. It's a movement helping change makers rediscover joy as a tool for well-being, resilience, and healing. Because one thing for sure is that joy helps us hold both pain and the possibility. It builds capacity for empathy, creativity, and courage. The same tools needed in leadership and change making. Listen and subscribe to hear from leaders, explore how joy shows up in their lives, work, and how they lead. Thank you to our sponsor, Chewlin Group, who is on a mission to bring the audacity of joy to transform organizations to become drivers of health and well-being, to build trust, collaboration, and impact. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Audacity of Joy podcast. I'm your host, Jennice Chewlin, and I am with my wonderful friend here, Evenor Pineda. Evenor, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jennice. As always, a pleasure and an honor. So thank you again.
Yes, I wanted to invite you, and so thank you for accepting. I wanted us to dive into a little bit about the role of joy in advancing our work and justice, healing, and transformation. And when I thought about that word, you popped into my mind because of the work that you're doing right now. So would you share with our listeners what role you have now and why this role is so meaningful to you?
Absolutely. Thank you. Evenor Pineda, I am the Intervention Services Director for the Manchester Police Athletic League. For the past 2 years, I've been piloting a program called Choices, High Risk Youth Mentoring. So basically the gist of it is working with high risk youth in Manchester primarily, but we also do some work outside of Manchester. The uniqueness of this program is that the mentors are folks with lived experience like myself, having been in the juvenile and adult system for a significant amount of time. And why I started doing this work was just that, was my past in identifying the need or the lack thereof when I was younger to have a positive male role model in my life that I could connect with and that could resonate with my story and my experiences. And so knowing the obstacles that I faced growing up and not having that person I could turn to, lent to this passion of mine to do the work that I'm doing to provide a service in the community that's sorely needed for this highly marginalized portion of the juvenile population that is just struggling. They're just struggling. It's great that at this point in the history of New Hampshire, I'm gonna just keep it local. Is that they're open to these new means of providing services to young people and understanding that, you know, not every kid is it's not cookie cutter. They're not everybody's a nail. So I know some folks have that mentality of that they're a hammer and so they're gonna treat everybody like a nail. But the reality is that we are all, unique in difference. And maybe today I'm a nail, tomorrow I'm a screw. You know what I mean? Or maybe I'm always a screw or a nut or what have you. And I'm trying to use as many analogies or examples as I could. But it's that is promising and motivating for me to see that, and how I first got started of all places was with the police athletic league. And I kind of want to share with you, like, I grew up in Nashua, and literally I lived on the other block from the PAL in Nashua and never set a foot in there until last year as an adult, through my work. And so again, coming out of the prison system and then volunteering here for the Manchester Police Athletic League was, a little bit of culture shock, but I got over that. And even now, just full time with the Police Athletic League, to know that I first got my start was because of the former chief, Aldenberg, who was able to, he loved the pitch that we made to them, and he had some unused federal funds, ARPA funds, that he was able to reallocate to Manchester PAL to pay for my first year's salary. So again, that lends to the mentality nowadays, which is again very promising. I feel for us to see that there is a change, that people recognize that, what, just because you wear a badge doesn't mean that, you can connect with kids. And how I like to frame it is that we're controlled fire. So the same way that firefighters combat wildfires with controlled fires, in this setting, law enforcement is kind of making that same jump as far as using folks with lived experience, the controlled fire, to combat the needs of the high risk youth, which would be the wildfires. So again, I'm happily motivated and encouraged that I'm where I'm at in my life and in this time in history in New Hampshire, to be a part of this movement, which is catching fire. Not to no pun intended, I swear.
Yeah, yeah, no. I appreciate you sharing the in-depth background on your story and how you got involved with MPAL, because you're shining a light on the importance of living experience working with those who are at risk and why that's so powerful, And you talked a little bit too, Evanor, about the word transformation. You
Mm,
know, what is required of us to transform, and what are the conditions that are necessary for that spark of change, to go along with your metaphor, the spark, to control a wildfire, or to kickstart something, a brand new life. And so this lends perfectly as a segue to talk a little bit about how I met you. We're both in New Hampshire, and I was running my Joy as Resistance program, and you had applied, you were a participant, and we got to know you in not just the role you were in, but as who you were, the change that you were developing professionally and personally, as you are leading this way and learning from these other leadership groups, and continuing using your living experience for a change that will impact others. So the central question of the podcast is around, what role do you see joy in your line of work in transforming lives? So I just want to pause for a minute and invite us and our listeners too, because we talk a lot about that three-letter word. But in the beginning of our course, the Joy is Resistance course, we learned that there are more than one way to feel joy or to look at joy. And so I'm wondering, do you have a certain way that you define joy, or are there other words you feel are closer to you that spark curiosity around that?
yeah, that's a great point. There's so many different ways to describe that feeling of joy and how it might show up in the lives of everybody. We're all individual, and how we break it down. And I know early on in the Joy as Resistance workshop that we were doing, I kind of struggled with that. Like, what is that? What is joy? How does that appear in my life? How do I define that? And honestly, what I've discovered is that I really get a joy out of seeing other people being happy or finding peace or celebrating a moment. And I think that's what, is a unique way of looking at it, is joy can be fleeting. It can be brief, but it's enough power packed in those few moments where it keeps you moving, it keeps you motivated, it keeps you optimistic. And I would even say, maybe another way to think of joy is hope. Hope is like this happiness of that there is a light at that end of the tunnel. No matter what phase in life you're going through, how dark and uh, unproductive or sad, like there's always it can only get so bad. I feel like that's loaded to me just saying that. But uh, that's where I find my joy in the work that I do is seeing even those brief glimpses of, a young person being a young person, being a child. And nowadays, young people, they want to grow up fast. I mean, the same way we were when we were younger. We always looked forward to growing up and having independence, but not understanding the sacrifices that come with that. And so, just being able to live in the moment, in the moments, be mindful, of the brevity of life, and that this moment, the spark of joy or happiness or peace or um reflection or insight, however you want to break it down, like, you have to appreciate that because you don't know if it's going to happen again. It's going to show up differently. Every moment's unique. It's again, seeing these young people and what I hear constantly, it can be draining. It can beat you up. Sometimes I question if I'm doing the right things, if I'm on the right path. But it's those moments when I see my young mentees, seeing success, realizing their own potential, understanding that you don't have to sit in the dark, that you can get up, you have control, that you are the driver of your own destiny. That's where I find joy. That's where I find motivation and that spark to continue and to realize like this is a non-linear process. You might be joyful one moment and then crying the next out of sadness, but then back to joy. I mean, again, that's just human nature and the roller coaster that ride that it is.
Right. I mean, as a human experience, I think we're taught like, five basic human emotions.
Mm.
And through the program, the Joy's Resistance program, we learned that, gosh, there's so many nuanced ways to feel about something. Yeah, I'm angry about this. But
Yeah,
really, what's the next feeling beyond that? And that's frustrated.
yeah,
And even beyond that, like, what's frustrating? It's that, oh, wait, I'm feeling let down or it's bitter. And the more we're able to fine tune that emotion, then we just get to know ourselves better, and a part of what I saw the growth in you is that you, like you said, you came in one way, like skeptical perhaps, or very, I will say, curious. I think that's the better way to put it, is you were curious. And then because we were in a group environment, like you got to hear again, to your point of other people's experiences and how it held up a mirror or a window for you to then say, oh, I never thought of it like that, or I'm having a hard time thinking of this one way to feel about life. Is it true? Like, should I be disappointed that I can only feel happy my whole life? Is there shame in that? And then we explored that, wait a minute, what we're doing now in working together is saying we can have all these experiences at the
yeah,
same time.
absolutely. I love how you put that, and it makes me think of my time in prison, and where that was one thing I would say was something commonly shared amongst my peers was that you know, no matter regardless of our circumstances at that time, the one thing that nobody could affect was, the capacity to laugh, to smile, to have fun, to have again those moments, as brief as they may be, of just a pure joy of just enjoying another person's company and trying to lift each other's spirits up. Um, that's one thing that no one can take away from you. And so if you're able to
Mhm.
hold on to it, I mean, you can only take it away from yourself and it's a choice, you know what I mean? But uh, you know, there was that movie, it was based on the Holocaust. I never got to watch it, but I know that the premise of it was basically a father during the Holocaust trying to make light of the situation to his son by using comedy. It's
Mm.
I frequently share that in some of the presentations I do when I'm asked to speak to colleges and to students about it's crazy. Like I've had some really sad moments in my life, but where I turn to but to uh
Like humor?
Humor, thank you. To make, to deal with the situation, you know what I mean? Just kinda go to that. I remember as a kid, coming from a very tough households and being in school, and I was kind of a class clown, and so everybody perceived me as like, "Oh, you're always smiling and laughing and joking around. You must have a great life." And it was quite the opposite. To the contrary, it was dark and dismal in my home, and walking on eggshells. So for me, the outlet was school to goof off and be with my friends. And again, even in prison, there were certain moments where I just like it was humor is how we escaped reality sometimes, to just survival. It's survival. You know what I mean? And we need that. We're social animals, and so you need company, you need other folks, and humor is a great way of connecting and deflecting.
Yeah. And I wonder if your mentees have ever shared or if you've picked up on, little comments. Do your mentees ever like say, man, Evanor, if you are living this life and you're living in your purpose and I see you laughing, and even though you were in prison and you said how your home was, do they ever ask, like, how do you still laugh? Like, how is it possible? What are your rituals or habits? Because when things are so bad, and as you know, many people are feeling that way right now, today, what advice could you share with listeners who feel like, I just don't see any opportunity for sparks? Where can I laugh? Where can I find confidence or purpose if I feel so dark?
Mm. Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. And, I would say my mentees, I wouldn't say they quite have asked such an in-depth question in their own roundabout ways. They've asked, I would say, similar questions. And I just remind them that in life, the only real competition is yourself. You know what I'm saying? So it's to be better you today than you were yesterday. It's not worrying about what everybody else is doing. And I think that's what happens, that we rob ourselves of pride and joy when we start looking outside of ourselves to seek those things. And that's something I commonly hear is like, oh, if I had this, then I would be happy. If I had that, if I had a girlfriend or why or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, I'm sorry, my man, like, that is not a, that's not the route to take. You need to find happiness from within and just understand that we all have it. And there's something I read a long time ago, and basically it was like kids, like we don't listen to our kids enough, especially when they're younger. And if anything, we do them a great disservice by minimizing a lot of their thoughts, ideas, or their just approaches to life. We beat the innocence out of them in a sense. I mean, we rob them of their innocence. We rob them of their joy.
We sterilize their environment of that
Exactly,
of the play.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, because, rightfully so, sometimes you have to put up boundaries, but at the same time, you gotta be okay with, like, you know what, the only way he's gonna learn is if he falls and he gets that little bruise or bump or cut, right?
Mm.
That's how we grow up. That's how, we figure ourselves out is by doing that and reminding ourselves that we have all failed. Every one of us has failed multiple times, but we also have not given up. And it just again, it's something as simple as reminding ourselves is when we were babies, you know what I mean? You go from, rolling onto your stomach or your back to crawling to taking those first, just trying to stand up. You know what I mean? The baby steps to like you're running around and all that stuff, right? It just reminds us of like that is ingrained in us. It is our nature to fail and to get back up again, and to be able to learn to laugh at ourselves. And I think that's a big piece too, is just that is like a lot of people don't know how to be humble, right? If you can't
Mhm.
learn to laugh at yourself, you're gonna have a very miserable life because anytime anybody laughs, you're gonna question like why? Why are they laughing? Is there something about me? You know what I mean? Again, you're gonna look internally but for all those shortcomings that you keep pushing to the front, which are really not that important.
Yeah,
Just the simplicities in life.
simplicities in life is what you're saying to focus on, and I also hear you say how I loved how you're like, we're looking for the wrong things when we wanna practice more of these positive emotions, or we wanna invite more of this humor in, you gotta go beyond the external. When we start saying, "Well, I will be happy when XYZ happens,"
Yeah.
we're gonna be on this constant chase, and
Yes.
then I think that that's the confusing part is we will swap happiness
Mm,
for joy, those
mm,
two words, but they're so distinctly different where joy is within and happiness is external. And when you can start to define and separate those two, then you can start to say, whoa, A, I got it wrong.
yeah.
B, what what does joy feel like to me? Where in my life am I finding it? If it is within. And it's a lot of the times the connection that you're talking about, like to connect as two human beings that need biologically, we need connection in our lives. And then we start to separate that and say, wow, let me get curious with this. And that's what, for me, the result and impact of the Joy as Resistance program is that it really was a simple invitation for 10 of us to gather and explore the definition, the practice, and how it's connected to our well being. And then you said something about like, we have to, in a way, I heard you say, like, we have to collect evidence
Mm,
that we can do and accomplish these things. And we can collect evidence that they're not laughing at me or they're in awe of me,
mm.
of how I can get through this and how I can use with what's happening in a way that I know I'm not going to stay here. And I bet you that is how your mentees look at you is like, you didn't stay stuck. You didn't stay where you were. You took advantage, you leveraged, I should say, the resources around you. You mentioned someone important to you, the chief who saw something in you and said, we're going to invest in what this possibility could be. And then I'm sure you had to kind of separate and think, well, is it internal me or is it the external that they want? And you're navigating, I'm sure, and we all do, we all navigate, is it the me inside or is it the external part?
No, absolutely. That's a great point. And I would even say like, I'm still not perfect. There's no such thing as perfection.
Hmm.
There's the goals to strive for excellence, right? But I mean, no, I still struggle on a regular basis with those concepts that I've mentioned to you as far as, the external versus the internal. I mean, I still am a victim to if I had this,
Yeah,
then this will lead to that.
sure.
And I'm still trying to reconcile those things. But because I'm aware of it, and that's a big piece of it, and then I'm able
Yes.
to share and provide insights for others. I don't, and I do my best to always lead by example and put my best foot forward and present and show up every day, even though, again, the nature of the work can be very heavy. So that's where, the self-care piece comes into it. And I always say that's another part of joy is that, taking care of yourself, putting yourself first. And it's not being selfish, it's self-care. And a great example I love to share with my young people is, you know, a lot of them have big hearts and they want to help others. But I always remind them before you can help others, you have to establish a strong, firm foundation. Because if you want people to lean on you, then you need that foundation. If not, once they lean on you, you're toppling over with them. So that's why you need to put yourself first. You need to put up boundaries. And again, that's something that I do on a regular basis because of the nature of our work. Because I'm in it for the long run. I'm in it for the long haul, right? So
Hmm.
this is not a sprint. It's a marathon, and therefore I have to pace myself. I'm gonna go all out all the time, and use my community. The folks that I work with, the people who I trust that support me, folks like yourself, you know what I mean? Where, the nature of the work that you're doing in providing an outlet for us to explore. Because to your point, that was probably the best way to describe it was I was curious. I was wondering how can I incorporate this in my life? Because I see it wasn't prevalent to me. It wasn't something that was in my face as joy. I got glimpses of it. And it almost feels like and I don't mean to say this in the wrong way in a negative connotation, but I can't help but compare it with like an addiction. You know what I'm saying? It's like you're seeking that high. Joy is that high. And I think that's something that eludes us. And it's a lot simpler than we make it out to be. And we unfortunately attach actions or proof or accomplishments,
Results,
things
yeah,
like that
proof.
exactly with it.
Yep.
And the reality is that it's from within. You know what I mean? It's just kind of
Yeah.
reminding ourselves again, there is proof. We've already put in the work. We've gotten this far. And if you want to go all the way back to like to conception, right? And being
Yeah.
we were the winning sperm, you know what I'm saying? It's something to look at it. You gotta look at we have come so many obstacles to be
Mhm.
where we're at, and we're just so close to it. It's like the saying, "You can't see the trees through the forest." Right?
Mhm.
So it's just realizing that, man, like we are all winners, we are all champions. We have all overcome so much throughout our lives, and going back to our ancestors and just paying them honor and knowing that we're here because of them, because we have those genes that survival and the tools that we need to to continue to fight the good fight.
Exactly, and to navigate, right? To
Absolutely.
continue to fight the good fight, and I appreciate you saying that. I mean, that I do feel is my existence is to be a walking invitation and of exploration. Because of this one word helps us have so far a 30-minute conversation to explore hardship, challenges, and celebration.
Yes.
And there's a lyric that says that the world didn't give it to me, so it can't take it away.
Mm,
And they're talking about joy. And that is my mantra whenever I am feeling beat down or I feel like, these forces are getting a little strong on me. I start to remember, wait a minute, like I know within me something they can't take from me, which is my ability to adapt and to search out for the sparks. Now, Evanor, you said something that I think is really important to go a little further exploring, and you talked about self-care and the role of self-care. That is so powerful. I wonder, I mean, from my side of things and the people I am speaking to, and not a lot of men are talking about self-care and what they're doing to be that strong foundation first so that others can lean on them. Do you mind sharing a little bit about what you do to practice self-care and why you realize that prioritizing it is crucial?
absolutely. And thank you. Yes. So I remember I feel like self-care looks different, for everybody, obviously. And through life, we've probably done things that we didn't even realize was self-care. And sometimes it's as simple as just unplugging. You know what I mean? When you go home and you just like toss the phone to the side, you know what I mean? And you're just in quietness or in your car ride if you have a significant commute and listening to something, whether it's a podcast or some music that you like. It could be just tuning things out and just a distraction, watching TV, playing a video game, reading a book, cooking, cleaning, things like that. It looks different. And there's no one foolproof plan. I feel like, we all need to just know what helps. But understanding that that is self-care. And as long as there's no like the distraction piece is good, but to an extent, because too much of it and then you're not really doing anything, right? You're putting a band-aid as a temporary uh
Mhm.
measure because you're really not addressing the situation. And so for me, what it looks like is a couple different things. Like I enjoy working out. And I'm gonna admit the past couple months I've really struggled, but that is it's been a go-to throughout my life, taking care of myself. As much as, working out is physical, it for me was more mental than anything.
Mhm.
Also, for a long time, there was a period of time where I used to write a lot. I used to write poetry, short stories, things along those lines. And that was huge for me in prison to take care of myself and just deal with a lot of the personal loss and the experiences that I was missing out on, being secluded in a way and kind of on an island, if you will,
Mhm.
through those years. And today, like giving back to me is self care, is being doing for others. I enjoy, but also understanding myself, like where I am more introverted than I am extroverted, and therefore my job, I'm forced to be an extrovert. So when I have opportunities to be by myself, that's the quietness, alone time, that recharges me. I'm fine with that.
Solitude.
Silence, yeah,
Mhm.
silence, like that's peace to me. That does not bug me. I know some people like they go crazy with it, but it's again, it's an individual thing, understanding what it is. that refills your cup, because you need to do that. At the end of the day, you can only give so much. And going back to what I had said previously about the establishing a strong foundation, self-care is like a cornerstone of you know what I mean, is a huge piece of that foundation that you need to create for yourself. Because again, if you find joy or passion or motivation in doing for others, that means you need to be able to show up. And how do you show up? You need to take care of yourself first. And I remember, uh, I think year or so after I had got out, I was going through a divorce process. I remember meeting with an old mentor of mine and having that conversation and catching her up. And I said, "Yeah." I remember, I said to her, I was like, "Yeah, I had to make a real selfish decision, and and remove myself from that relationship." And she stopped me and she's like, "No, no, no, no." She's like, "That wasn't selfish. That was self care." She's like, "A lot of people, they get that confused. They always think, oh no, no, it's selfish if I think about myself first." No, you can. If you do not put yourself first, then you're not going to maintain longevity in whatever it is that you're doing if you're giving out to others. Because at some point, I mean, like, you're gonna drop dead at 70 when you should still be rocking until you're 100. You know what I mean? Or give or take,
Yeah.
right? It's those things. So again, if you really care about what you're doing or who you're doing it for, you have to prioritize yourself. And again, that's going to look different for everybody. And an extrovert, they're going to want to be around more people to be recharged. They might need to go to that concert. They will need to go dance. They need to go do some other stuff. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Go to the club, whatever it is. You know what I mean? Or be with family,
Yeah.
friends, in order to recharge. So it's, again, just understanding that it's going to look different for every one of us, but that it needs to be a priority to take care of yourself and to model that for everybody else. And that's something that I feel like getting in this line of work, I recognized early on, is a lot of people that are burnt out, that are, they're suffering from friction fatigue. You know what I mean? So they're actually more
Tell
negative
me
than they are positive.
tell me more what you mean by friction fatigue.
Friction fatigue is just it's like in this type of work, working with people. So if you want to say social services,
Mhm.
you're dealing with a lot of stuff. And in the course of kind of like swimming against the flow, or the
The
currents,
current. Mhm.
right? Like, there's a friction to that, right? Because you're fighting up against something, whether it's water or you're walking up a mountain, you know what I'm saying? There's friction there on your feet, you get calluses, stuff like that, or whatever, blisters. That's the physical manifestation of some type of friction fatigue, but it shows
Yeah.
up differently, where it's here, in your brain, in your heart, where you feel like beat up and you're suffering, and because of the course of the work that you're doing, and you're not prioritizing yourself, and you're not taking care of yourself. You're not taking those pauses, those breaks, but you can't, because you can't be everything for everyone. And there's only, the one resource that is so limited in this world and finite, is time. I mean,
Mhm.
so it's managing that time so that you can maximize whatever there is in life for us, right? So I guess the body is designed to max out at like 120 years. The average life, span for an American is 80 years, give or take, depending on your male or female. So that speaks to a bunch of other things that's going on. Why are those other 40 years where they're going? Is because how we're
Mhm.
eating, right? How if we're taking care of ourselves or not. There's a lot of misconceptions where people like, oh, old people need to rest, or like, no, no, they keep moving, because if you don't keep moving, if you don't keep swimming, right, you're not gonna get that water through your gills and get the oxygen out of it. It's the same thing, man. Like, if you think you're just gonna sit on the couch for the last 40 years and make it, you're not. You're really not. There's something to that, where keep moving. You know what I'm saying? Keep
Yeah,
with
and take
purpose.
advantage of your time too, because I
Yes.
was gonna ask, what do you think for you? We won't speak for everybody because you're right. Everybody has their own self-care practice, but let's talk a little bit about what could get in the way for you to not go to the gym or to not have that solitude time. What I think it's important to talk about the barriers too, in addition to the tools that you're using. But I think people can relate to, like, you too. I
Yeah.
also, around this time of year, which is the season of like the early darkness, the real cold, it's so cold out there with the wind that I too am. What's getting in the way for me to do my favorite activity, which is running, is I don't enjoy it inside.
Mm.
it is very, very hard for me to get on that treadmill. It's unenjoyable, and so the barrier for me is, like, I don't think it's fun. I need to find a way to make that activity fun or find a different physical activity I can do during this season of life, but or not life, the season of the year.
Yeah, yeah. No, so, that's a great question, and so, obstacles for me is I don't practice what I'm preaching. Everything I'm telling you guys, like, I'm not fully in line with it, right? So,
Right.
I overwork, I'm
Mhm,
long hours, I'm like, "Oh, no, 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 like, I gotta do this, I gotta do that," right? So, that takes away from me getting back home, and it disrupts a routine, and routine is important, you know what I mean? And very difficult, especially for folks that are workaholics, right? And go-getters and super motivated and ambitious, is that sometimes it's work, 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 and we don't take the time again to pause, to take care of ourselves, prioritize ourselves, and I'm as equally as guilty of that. And that's why I've struggled the past couple of months with the getting up early because I love working out in the morning. For me, that's the
mhm,
best time to do it. And because I've been sleeping in because I'm in the office till 7, 8 at night. And by the time I get home, it's 8, 9 o'clock and make something to eat and relax, and I'm falling asleep on my couch and waking up at 1 in the morning and relocating to the bedroom, and so I'm not getting that full 6 to 8 hours of sleep. Diet is huge, and that inconsistency with that is another piece to it. And then life throws different things at you every time, whether that's work, and where like I struggle with saying no, and so I've been getting a lot of invites for speaking engagements or collaborations, and or taking on more kids, and I'm like, I want to help everybody and I want to do everything and I want to get this message out. And so because I'm overcommitting, I'm taking
mhm.
away from me time, the time that I need in order to make sure that I'm crossing all my T's and dotting on my I's in the professional world, but also in my personal life, and setting that time as aside for me. And how that looks is that the weekends I'm burnt out. Like, I'm a
Right,
couch potato. I
right.
just wanna sit on the couch and just catch a breath,
Yeah, yeah.
for those 48 hours, get a full 48 hours.
And I think thanks for sharing that, Evanor, because like I said, I think it's important to talk about the barriers and also to paint a real picture of like what happens when we overwork.
Mm,
Now, the weekends, which are supposed to be restorative, we don't even have the capacity, the
yeah,
energy
yeah,
to meet that weekend with something restorative. We are now so depleted, it's just we're trying to use that as to not get further diminished.
yeah.
And I think for others to hear you share that and to hear that, look, I'm preaching a lot of things too, but I am not always on target is also humbling. We're all on a journey and we're constantly picking up tools, putting other ones down, trying to figure out what this problem needs, which tool is it going to need, and we keep going. But as community leaders, I think it's really powerful for you to share that you want you are living in your purpose. You love what you're doing and you love how people feel when you do what you're doing, but it's a balance, or what I like to say, it's at a cost, right? Can't be in a deficit giving, giving, giving. And you're pointing to the fact that we've got to make withdrawals for ourselves too, or get that account, up to a level where we are able to give.
Absolutely,
So thank you
absolutely.
for sharing that. I really appreciate that. And with this last, couple minutes here, I'd love to hear if you have any other insight for other community leaders around working in this space. You are working on helping others transform their lives. Is there any last insight that you want to share around how you use the impact of joy, which whether it's confidence, curiosity, contentment, how you use that as a way to as an engine to keep going in your work.
I I have I would say this is a more recent, um, skill I've been practicing, and that is taking care of myself. When I'm taking that pause, is to really reflect on the work, and allowing myself to be proud of how much I have been able to accomplish as an individual, and how much we have been able to accomplish as a team, with the work that we're doing, and how, we said this was how it was going to play out. And originally it was over 3 years, and, we're at the 2 year mark and we've exceeded the 3 year, projection. Uh, you know, you really got to compare. I feel like I'm a grape, and I'm always comparing myself to grapefruits and watermelons and all these big, other fruits and stuff like that. And to know that, wow, I still am as delicious and sweet and taste, you know what I mean, as those other fruits, and regardless of my size, and that how much we've been able to accomplish in that we don't have the same resources other people have. Got to take pride in that. We really got to take a moment, and you got to pat yourself on the back. And again, I struggle with that. I don't really care when people pay me um compliments and things like that. I just want to get over with. Like, yeah, yeah, it's cool. You know what I mean? Like, I just want to keep marching forward, and that's good. But every now and then, you gotta allow yourself to gas yourself up, and be proud of what others say, what you've been able to, assess as your accomplishments. And I would even say this is like, a part of it is being brave enough, what I mean, to try different things, like signing up for the joy as resistance. To your point, and I pointed out, and I even said it during our sessions. I was like, here I am again, the only guy, I mean, in this space, with nothing but females, and it's very common in this field. But that doesn't deter me. I feel more proud that I'm a man and I'm an ambassador, and for the multiple communities that I represent. But I'm also courageous enough and brave enough to try new things. I don't care how stupid and how simple it may sound. Like I tell the kids all the time, I was like, fake it till you make it, right? You hear a lot, and there's something to it. It's just try it. You know what I mean? Like, and it's just how you speak to yourself. Looking in the mirror every morning and reminding yourself, hey, you're worth it. You're valued. You're loved. You're cared for. You're important. You're making a difference. People are like, I'm not doing that hocus. It's like it's hocus pocus. It's whatever.
Yeah.
Call it what you want. But if you're not trying it, then you'll never know what it can lead to. And I love using science to back up a lot of these things. I've talked to you maybe about the water experiment with the different water droplets that were frozen, and there was water droplets that were frozen while positive words were being said, and there was water droplets that were frozen as negative things were being said. And then the scientists put those water droplets under the frozen water droplets under the microscope. And the best way I can describe how the negative water droplets look like was like if you were to look at boogers under a microscope. And then the positive words, they looked like snowflakes, just beautiful geometric shapes that were all unique. And that just speaks to the power of your words, and how we are
Mhm.
70% water, and that even when we, negatively self-talk, and we just do it sometimes, just it's just by nature, right? Like, you dummy, you missed the exit, or whatever. Like, you have to be careful with how you speak of yourself, because your body doesn't know the difference. And how that affects
Absolutely.
you, and and
Yeah.
and and the beauty in words. And again,
Mhm.
just don't wait for anybody else to come and make your day better. You have to take charge of that.
That's
You
right. I love how you I didn't hear about that study, so thank you. I heard about the plant study where they did the same experiment with plants where they talk bad to the
Mhm.
plants. You're stupid.
Yeah.
You're not growing the way you should. And then they spoke affirmations to the other plants
Yes.
and they measured the growth, and the ones that got the positive words and affirmations grew more. And so I didn't know about yours, and now I have a new metaphor or a reference to use. And one thing I wanted to highlight what you said was when we talk a lot about our emotions, we often talk about like being in the present moment to get aware of what that emotion is and naming it. Cause right, like you can name it to tame it is a common phrase as well. But I love how you just shared that the power of reflecting can also bring about these emotions like pride,
Mm.
and when you feel that pride growing from your chest and it just feels like it's blooming across your chest, I think we forget sometimes that reflection is a powerful tool that can also lead us to these emotions that we can then use as evidence to keep going forward. So the part that I'm saying like an engine that keeps us going, what's the gas? And the gas are these moments where you're like, I'm proud of myself, or what? I showed up again and I'm the only guy? All right, I'm courageous. This is it. I'm going to do it again. And It's moments like that and podcasts like this where I'm hoping others will hear and be like, you know what? I've been waiting to take that class, or I've been waiting to learn more about this. And then they take that leap. And there's positive psychology around trying new things. Like it gives us that feeling of pride and courage that it can get addicting. You're like, "What else can I do?" You know? If I'm able to get over this hurdle, what
Yeah,
else can I do? And it's
absolutely.
just it's like the gas and the engine to keep you going. This interview has been so delightful in so many ways. One is like all the metaphors that we used. I just love that, like so many ways to get our listeners to draw a picture of what we're talking about, your lived experience and what you're doing now to impact the lives of young men right here in New Hampshire. And then you're meeting other leaders right across the nation in your line of work who are doing similar work, and you're exchanging not just strategies and helping your young men, but strategies for yourselves on how you keep that foundation strong. So I want to thank you so much for bringing all your truths with us, sharing it with our listeners. And I want to thank everybody for listening. Evanor, thank you again for coming on.
Thank you. It was both a joy and pleasure. And again, I always appreciate you extending these opportunities to me. And I hope I was able to lend some insight to somebody out there. So again, thank you.
You're welcome. I'll see you soon. Take
You too.
care. What does it look like to choose joy in a place designed to extinguish it? Today's guest, Evenor Pineda, doesn't just answer those questions from a professional perspective, but he answers them from a personal one. He knows firsthand what it's like to be in a space where your freedom is stripped away and yet your spirit remains your own. He's here to show how we move from survival mode to a life with intention, reflection, and pride in his progress, and a commitment to hope. I am so struck by Evanor's honesty today, especially about the trap of being too depleted at the end of the day to enjoy your own life. That while being lit up and happy and proud that others are achieving their purpose and their goals, that sometimes when you give all of yourself, you remain empty and depleted. And it's a reminder that we can't give from an empty cup. If you're listening today and you feel like you're just surviving the grind, I hope that Evanor's story and journey will give you inspiration and permission to try something different. Be brave enough to use that affirmation, take that moment of reflection, or to protect your capacity for joy. And as Evenor has showed us, your joy is the one thing no one can take from you. So make sure you save some for yourself. Don't let comparison steal your progress. You're becoming a better version of yourself every single day because you're trying, because you're leading with curiosity. Thank you for joining us. I'm Jennice Chewlin, and I will see you next time.